This year marks the 160th anniversary of Florida Emancipation Day. We know the day the proclamation was read in Tallahassee and Tampa. We don't know when it was read in Brooksville, so why are we here? Why are we on this hill and at this house? And why are we here at all looking backwards into the past? I'm going to answer my second question first. Why do we bother looking at the past? I'd written my own answer, but 2 days ago came across a 100-year-old letter from Chinsegut owner Elizabeth Robbins that I'd never read before. She writes much better than I do, so I scrapped my speech and will read her words instead. Men who have time to look back as well as forward see the bearing of the past on the present. But for memory, each generation would have to start fresh. 6,000 years ago, before the Chaldeans of Ur impressed their achievements on clay tablets, men had realized that memory is the handrail up the steep stairs of civilization. To summarize in my own simple words, a wise person will always look at the past to help them decide what they want their future to look like. We look to the past to be inspired, challenged, and when we are made uncomfortable, to find out why. So today we look back 160 years to emancipation. But why on this hill and at this house? Chinsegut Hill is one of the very best places in this nation to celebrate Emancipation Day. 2 of the 4 private owners of this property brought enslaved people with them to work the land. And within that same generation, formerly enslaved people who had lived and worked on this hill became owners of some of the land on which they'd been enslaved. While other places tried to resist change through segregation and Jim Crow laws, on this hill, the Robbins family created a different culture. Church services, meals, and parties were integrated, and members of staff were hired for jobs based on their skill sets and not on the color of their skin. We do know some things about how emancipation affected this hill. We know Frances Etherington had 30 enslaved people working on the hill in the household and on the farm. We know Frances stood at the far northwest corner of this house to make the announcement that emancipation had come and that the formerly enslaved people were told they had the right to leave or stay on as employees. We know many chose to become employees and work for the Etheringtons, as well as for the next 2 owners, Charlotte Etherington Snow and Elizabeth Robbins. We know a yearly emancipation celebration was held somewhere in Brooksville and that the staff at Chinsegut would take the day off work to go participate. We know all of these things because of a woman named Elizabeth Carr Washington. I'm going to call her Lizzie for the rest of my talk because that's what she was called in her lifetime, and to help lessen confusion between my reference to her and to Elizabeth Robbins. Lizzie was born into slavery in South Carolina, came here at age 7 to work in the household. She was 17 years old when she stood at the northwest corner of this house to hear Frances announce her emancipation. We know everything I mentioned because Lizzie told about these events to her children and her grandchildren and her employers, and they passed on those stories in letters. When speaking of emancipation, Lizzie called it the day freedom came. And in the 83 years she lived on this hill, she went from being enslaved to owning some of this property, to owning one of the community's first cars, and to working as a midwife for more families than we can track. We're honoring Lizzie today for the knowledge she's provided us with a special event. The Brooksville Women's Club has commissioned local artist Johan Casadiego to commemorate Mrs. Washington's life in a painting. Be sure to stop by his tent and watch him creating this painting right in front of us. We're also on this hill and at this house because stories of Chinsegut give great insight into life in Florida. From an archaeological dig performed just to the west of the house, we know Native Americans came here to trade. Archaeologists found trading beads, a scale, weights, and a clay pipe. From carefully preserved letters and documents, we know brave settlers and European immigrants sacrificed easy lives in their homelands for the promise of opportunity here. The unusually rich soil, an entrepreneurial spirit, hurricanes, freezes, and stock market crashes meant fortunes were sometimes made and sometimes lost. Stories of Chinsegut reveal the best and the worst things human beings are capable of. After 10 years of researching the people of this hill, I continue to find new stories that challenge and inspire me. We also gather on this hill because descendants of people who lived and work here still live in this community today. They have been part of the stories of Hernando County for 175 years and have helped form, reform, and reform it. When you take a tour of the museum, you'll hear some of those stories, but right now I'm going to focus on one man, Fielder Harris. Fielder was born in South Carolina on a plantation where his mother was enslaved. He was enslaved as well until age 15 when Emancipation came. He moved to Brooksville when he was 31 and worked as a farmhand in Lake Lindsay that is now Ahochi Hill Sanctuary Audubon Preserve. It was at Ahochi Hill where Fielder met a 10-year-old Raymond Robbins. Raymond was a cousin of Fielder's employer and had been sent to live at the farm with the hope the climate would improve his health. The young boy followed Fielder like a shadow, fascinated with farm life and the depths of Fielder's knowledge. Many years later, Raymond would write, a wise fisherman and a mighty hunter, Fielder was the best axeman, oarsman, runner, wrestler, and jumper in the county. He was the master of horsemanship, broke the wildest of mules, tamed range cattle, and was altogether my ideal for those 7 years. In his autobiography, Raymond wrote, Fielder was a wise man. He would say, now Raymond, if you've got a hard job to do, you look that job over and see how you can take the advantage. In all tasks, Fielder had a notion that there was a right way and a wrong way, and he was going to be right about it. He taught me how to handle myself, how to handle stock, how to deal with all the questions that came up in a practical and efficient way. He'd listen respectfully to people talking, but when we'd get out of earshot, he'd say, now Raymond, that hot air is all right, but it takes cornmeal to make hot cakes. At that point, I began to sense the difference between talk and production. In return for Raymond's admiration, Fielder loved Raymond like a son, and throughout his lifetime called Raymond my boy, even when the gray hair and wrinkled faces of both men revealed boyhood was long gone. After the disastrous freeze that wiped out citrus groves all over Florida in 1895, a teenage Raymond left to make his fortune, and Fielder eventually joined the staff of Henry Plant's spectacular Tampa Bay hotel. With a $2 million price tag, equivalent to over $67 million today, Fielder helped landscape and maintain the hotel's 150 acres. Raymond and his eldest sister Elizabeth decided to set up home together, which they would name Chinsegut. It was to be their place of sanctuary from the stressful and chaotic lives they'd led. Elizabeth financed the purchase, and Raymond was tasked with finding the right spot. He searched all over the United States and decided to set up Chinsegut on this hill. After the purchase, Raymond focused his efforts on finding Fielder and bringing him back to Brooksville. Fielder gladly returned and was placed in charge of the management of the estate. Fielder's knowledge and experience made him the logical choice for the position. But Black Code and Jim Crow laws in place at the time meant Fielder was not the logical choice. Putting Fielder in authority flew in the face of policies intended to separate and subjugate men like Fielder. This was the first step in making Chinsegut a hill like no other. You can find out much more about that by listening to our podcast episode on Fielder that features an interview with Tampa Bay History Center's Fred Hearns, who organized today's event. You can find out how to access the podcast by visiting the Chinsegut gift shop or visiting my tent later today. For now, suffice it to say, Fielder was put in charge and he quickly became the heart and the soul of Chinsegut Hill. He helped in the renovation of the manor house, which was on the brink of being demolished. He oversaw the initial landscaping as well as agricultural production. And when Raymond and Elizabeth weren't here, he slept in the manor house. To be clear, that was the vast majority of the time in the first 20 years she owned the place. Elizabeth spent most of her time in London, and Raymond's primary home was in Chicago. The siblings visited Chinsegut usually once a year for a few weeks or maybe a month, but otherwise Fielder was in charge and living in this house. In that time, he turned what had become a fairly barren hill into a tropical paradise. When you take your house tour, you'll be able to view pictures of the remarkable difference from 1905 to a decade later. Now, it's important to say that not all Fielder's projects were successful. Raymond ordered what in today's money would be $80,000 worth of St. Augustine grass. Fielder irrigated it poorly and much of the grass died. Considering Elizabeth had only spent a little more than double that in actually buying the property, the loss of the grass was a fairly large failure. Fielder also had a very strained relationship with his mother-in-law. He'd married Lizzie's daughter, and though we don't know some of the specifics, we can surmise possible issues based on what we do know. They were both adults who had spent their childhood enslaved and knew how costly freedom had been. They both risked much, suffered much, and worked hard to carve out a new life for themselves and their descendants. They both had positions of authority, strong opinions, and had become used to being listened to. It's really kind of normal in-law stuff. When sharing my research, I believe it's important to include the struggles and failures as well as successes. Human nature wants us to assign one label to a person and then discard or repress any information that doesn't match our label. But that isn't helpful, and it makes us dishonest. Reality is that every day, every moment, we have the choice to be a hero or a villain. And every time we choose, we nudge ourselves closer to being defined as one or the other. Knowing everyone who went before us, like Fielder, Elizabeth, Lizzie, and Raymond, knowing that they did the same, should inspire us to press on and make heroic choices. Life at Chinsegut was messy, and its people were complicated, just like me, and don't be insulted, just like you. Lizzie sometimes undermined what the Robins were doing because her first loyalty was to the Snow family, and she thought loyalty to one person meant being unkind to someone else. Elizabeth sometimes got way too much into her feelings and imagined people were being mean, when in reality they were just being obliviously insensitive. Fielder sometimes left gates open, which meant that everyone had to stop work to go chase down cows, and Raymond sometimes spent his sister and wife's money like it could never run out, and he did it without their permission. It led to some difficult financial situations for everyone, and he seems to have left it to the women to fix it. At the same time, Lizzie volunteered her time as a midwife, and descendants of the Washington family have continued to serve this community in the medical field even today. Elizabeth helped women gain the right to vote, fought human trafficking, and mentored several of the next generation's leaders. Fielder preserved this home in this gorgeous landscaping that we still enjoy 101 years after his death. But he also served as the first pastor of a beautiful little church just down the hill on Broad Street that is still ministering to our community today and is now pastored by the Honorable Bill Pope. Raymond gifted over 2,000 acres of Chinsegut Hill Sanctuary to the federal government in 1932 as an agricultural educational research station, a wildlife preserve, and a community gathering space. Isn't that such a relief? 4 imperfect people showing us how to create lasting, impactful legacies. They did it. We can do it. Chinsegut Hill Sanctuary is proof that we don't have to accept the world we are given. We are free to dream of a better world, a better Brooksville, a better Hill, a better us, and a better me. Just like Fielder planted one bush at a time, dug one trench at a time, replaced one beam of wood at a time until all the bushes and trenches and beams were in place, we can look at our end goal and figure out what we can do today to move the goal closer. Even more importantly than what Fielder did for Chinsegut Hill Sanctuary is what he did for a 10-year-old foster boy who followed him around like a shadow for 7 years. Instead of shooing him away or giving him busy work to do, Fielder took on the hard work of mentoring an enthusiastic and most likely annoying young Raymond. By nurturing his gifts, satisfying his curiosity, and bolstering his confidence, Fielder was essential in developing the man Raymond Robbins would become. Raymond would go on to serve as an advisor for 7 United States presidents. He would privately negotiate with Vladimir Lenin on behalf of the U.S. government during World War I. Raymond would travel to Asia, Australia, Europe, Africa, and to every state in our union, while Fielder lived and worked on this hill. In fact, Fielder never really traveled until he went with Raymond to Theodore Roosevelt's home at Sagamore Hill, so Raymond could introduce his 2 mentors to one another. You see, the ongoing legacy of Chinsegut Hill Sanctuary, as we celebrate the 160th anniversary of Emancipation Day, is that we can all follow in Fielder's footsteps. We can give kindness and genuine love to those around us. There are 3 Bible verses on bronze plaques the Robbins put here, 1 at their graveside at the altar oak to the east of the house, and 2 at the fountain on the FAMU side. I'm encouraging you to go see all 3 because they speak to the heart and spirit of this place. But I'm going to close by reading one of them. The wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. That's from the book of Isaiah, chapter 35, verse 1. It's in the Old King James, so here's what it means in modern English. The wilderness and the dry land will be glad. The desert will rejoice and blossom like a rose. When we look around this sanctuary, especially in February when the roses and azaleas have blossomed, we see the physical blooming this verse speaks of. When we look at the legacy of Fielder Harris, we see the more substantial blossoming of how each of us can bless each other. May we honor Fielder by following his example.